Hello and welcome to another episode of Crypto Time. My name's James Coughlan and I'm joined with my usual co-host, Antonio Shillingford. How are you today, mate?
I'm doing rather fine. How about yourself?
Yeah, very good. Looking forward to getting involved in two subjects as always. One's a little bit on the disturbing side, which actually has a twist to the more positive light, and one being around actually Facebook and what's been happening in relation to Libra. So without further ado, I will kick straight into this episode. And the first, like I said, I will be covering will be around Libra. So we mentioned in the last episode that we were predicting a little bit of a domino effect after PayPal left the project. PayPal was a huge blow to Libra leaving, for the obvious fact that they're a major payment processor that's out there that are no longer supporting the project. So not only that, we've now seen that domino effect take effect, and that has now been with Visa, MasterCard, and not only just the payment providers, we've also seen eBay rock out of this as well. So that's quite interesting to see. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, as you said, something that was expected because a lot of these companies do have licenses and do have a reputation to protect, especially when you have Libra being so heavily attacked by regulators and it doesn't look like they're letting up the pressure at all. It makes sense on why all of those companies right now are backing out, because they need to protect home. They need to protect their bread and butter.
No, exactly. So Zuckerberg's been asked to do a hearing with Congress where he'll obviously run through what's been happening with the Libra project. He's put out a statement prior to obviously this Congress meeting taking place, and that statement includes the following. So Mark Zuckerberg will tell Congress on Wednesday he is willing to delay the launch of Facebook's cryptocurrency venture. Not only that, but the statement he also said was, "I believe this is something that needs to be built, but I understand we're not the ideal messenger right now." The Facebook CEO wrote in a prepared statement ahead of Wednesday's hearing in Congress, which I do think is interesting for him to put out there. I think that obviously he's going to put a positive spin on what he can. The fact that he's trying to control the narrative rather than being said that, I've been told I have to put a stop on things, I think is quite interesting. So there's also a couple more points to that statement. Zuckerberg also argued that Libra would improve millions of people's access to the banking system and that its development would extend America's financial leadership. Now, that's an interesting one because a lot of people have been trying to say that it's taking the power away from the US government and the US dollar because of the fact that they're looking to launch a different payment rail. Zuckerberg's trying to give it a slant again with the view that this is here to support the current financial system, not to push away from it in any sense. The really important one that he's also put out there is that he has mentioned that he will only go ahead and continue to push forward with the project if he gets the thumbs up and the approval of all US regulators. So it's not just a case of him sitting there saying that, okay, we're going to keep trying to push forward and keep arguing with regulators. They're pretty much saying now that, look, let's put a pause on things a little bit. We're willing to delay things. Let's get regulators happy and on board in terms of what we're trying to do. And let's just see how this plays out. I'm happy to make another prediction right now. The prediction I'm going to make is that Libra will never launch. I don't think that's going to happen. Do you want to throw in a stance on that as well?
Yeah, my prediction, I don't think they have a working model.
Yeah, they don't have a working model. So therefore, I think it's going to be an issue going forward. I think there are other people out there in terms of payment rails which are doing similar things to what they're doing. But it just doesn't make sense for me to use that. And not only for the fact that we've gone through before that they've had time and time again basically been mistrusted in relation to information. We had all the data analytica saga which went on where we saw that they couldn't be trusted. We've seen this time and time again now. So I think that's a nice point to move on from this subject, and let's kick into what's been happening around your subject.
Yeah, so mine is on a lot of the markets that have been generated through the dark web.
Sure.
And we've been talking about privacy and anonymity this whole time and what the difference really is between the two. Sure. And that's where you have these anonymous coins coming out. So the such likes of your Monero, your Zcash, so on and so forth. And what markets do they really fuel? Because you have people at the moment that want these coins to succeed. And they're not actually really understanding the ramifications of those coins actually succeeding. It comes into a situation where just because I don't want people to see my transactions, me going to the grocery store, me buying a TV, you don't want people to see those transactions. You need to understand that that's just one perspective. And that's a selfish perspective, because you now need to understand the knock-on effects that will actually have, and what industries you'll be fueling with being completely anonymous.
Yeah, I think it's a scary one. When we start talking about anonymous coins, we mentioned it in quite a bit of detail in the last episode that we have major concerns around it. There's a big difference, as you said, with privacy and being anonymous with something. Privacy, everybody is entitled to. But what level do we take that privacy to before it starts becoming anonymous completely, right? There has to be a view that I can go and do the things that I want to do without the prying eye of everybody knowing what I'm doing. Like you said, if I'm going to go and purchase something from Tesco's and I'm doing that regularly, I don't want to be a marketing tool there. For example, people are using the information of where I'm purchasing certain things to then market back to me in a certain way. They're things that I don't particularly like, but are they a huge problem to my life? Not at all, right? But I think the thing that we have to be real to is there are also other things out there that are going on that are a lot more nefarious than that. Mm-hmm. And we have to be real to the fact that sometimes we have to give up things that, we don't particularly want to, with the view that it has a greater good on the other end, which I'm sure you're going to touch on in a bit.
Yeah, and one of the true powers of Bitcoin is sight, being able to hold every single individual accountable for their actions. And these dark markets have been using Bitcoin with the lack of understanding of what it really is, because of the early narrative that came out was peer-to-peer money, which it is. It's just a peer-to-peer network in general, but a peer-to-peer money that people can't see you doing transactions, so you can hide from everything. When Bitcoin is the complete opposite. It is an open source project where you can see all of the transactions that have ever happened on chain. So the narrative was totally wrong, and here's how it was actually totally wrong. And here's how you hold these individuals that are in those markets accountable. So US and Korea authorities broke up one of the world's largest markets for child pornography. Mm-hmm. The US unsealed an indictment against Jong-woo Sun, who is 23, who prosecutors say operated the Darknet market that accepted Bitcoin and distributed more than 1 million sexual explicit videos involving children. Sun, a South Korean national, is serving 18 months in prison after being convicted. Now, since agents shuttered the site in March 2018, authorities have arrested 337 site users around the world. Now, they were in countries including the UK, Germany, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates.
So there's a lot of places that are in the mix there as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that a lot of it has something to do with ignorance for these people as well? It's like when you're talking about, when you talk about Bitcoin, for example, a lot of people were talking about it in the very early days as being, like we said, totally anonymous. No one really knew what you were doing and blah, blah, blah. Do you think that some of this stuff with these individuals is that they just simply are not aware that actually now there's a hell of a lot of KYC and AML going on? There's a lot of metrics and ways of actually being able to track payments. Do you think that's part of it?
Yeah, 100%. And if you look at it this way, the narrative of most of these media sites within cryptocurrencies is promoting Bitcoin to be the completely wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's not what they're trying to say. It doesn't allow you to do anonymous transactions where you can't possibly be tracked down. It is legitimately the complete opposite.
No, exactly.
So they may have been using it with a limited perspective of what the technology truly is. So that's how I think those individuals fall into the trap, the people that are actually using Bitcoin to pay these services. Yeah. And the fact that that person was accepting that as a currency, again, also kind of maybe insinuates that he had a lack of understanding as to what Bitcoin truly was.
Yeah, that's a very fair point.
And just to finish off this paragraph, and in nearly 24 US states, according to the US authorities, the UK government said people in 38 countries were arrested. So it wasn't just isolated to those particular places. That's just where the majority of people actually were. And this shows that governments are more than happy to communicate with each other and are actually now gaining a proper understanding as to what Bitcoin really is and how they can track people down. And that's how they broke this ring up. Because there were people that are actually have been saved. So lives have actually been saved. And it's covered in a part a little bit later on in this article. And here it is. Authorities say they rescued at least 23 minor victims in the US, UK, and Spain who were being actively abused by users of the site. So it works. Bitcoin works. It's doing exactly what it needs to. And these mechanisms that have been put in place, like SegWit, like the Lightning Network, will take away this ability to hold these people accountable for their actions and, end of the day, save lives.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is something that is a massive, massive tool that, you know, agencies can use out there. One thing that we've always discussed about Bitcoin is the fact that it's borderless. When we actually talk about something being borderless, we actually have been talking about things like Netflix and how, for example, they could increase the scope of what they're actually doing in terms of their business model. But that doesn't just stop in terms of being a plus for businesses that are out there. This also means that it makes it easier for governments to actually work together to actually ensure that these people are brought to justice in the way that they should. So I think that really that's a nice place to actually wrap up in terms of this episode at this moment in time, unless there's any points that you wanted to add before we do go.
Yeah, I just wanted to cover one more thing and then just tie it up at the end. So again, I know I've reading quite a lot of extracts from this article, but it just makes sense. So the IRS was also involved in this investigation. And Don Fort, chief of the division, said they determined the location of the Darknet server in South Korea, identified Sun, and found the physical location of the website. They also unmasked users hiding behind Bitcoin transactions, Fort said. Our agency's ability to analyze the blockchain and de-anonymize Bitcoin transactions allowed for the identification of hundreds of predators around the world. Fort said the scale of this crime is eye-popping and sickening. And everyone just needs to take into account this is what the real world application of Bitcoin is.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's a really nice place to actually wrap up this episode. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. If you are liking the content that's coming out of Bitstocks, please do hit that like, subscribe button. And not only that, you can listen to us through Spotify, iTunes, and also we have a fantastic ebook which is recently released through www.bitstocks.com. So as always, thank you so much. Bye for now.
Peace and love.